across the Atlantic with nothing but names. Irish and Scottish blood in our veins. Work the mines and the boats in the land. Built this life with calloused hands. That's how we got here. Salt, water, and stone. That's how we got here. Carrying it home. That's how we got here. Carrying it
I don't know if you can hear me now. You should be able to. Still no sound. Okay. What about now? Perfect. Okay. So let's go back, and I guess I was talking a lot for no purpose there. So we're going to go back to these schedules. And the first thing I'm going to actually do is we're going to look at the actual census record of my third great-grandfather, Farquhar. So this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 1871 census and some of the things that you have that are unique to it. It's the first census of the country of Canada, so it's a really good indication of what the country looked like, the new country. So it's really important in that sense because it's the first record we have of the whole country at once. This was so we're going to look at my third great-grandfather, Farquhar Campbell. Now, the things that are important on here, you have on the main page, this is what most people usually go to, is just they look at the main return where they would get them and their family, etc. So he's actually the bottom of the page, so his family on the next page. We're not going to necessarily look at them for today, but you're going to see some information. It's going to have his age, where he was born. This would be where your father was born, I believe, that next column. And if we want to know for sure, we have these column headings. This will tell you what each column is. So it goes through there. You see the top of the columns, they all have column numbers. When you look at them, and we go back up, you'll see they all have column numbers. That's just giving you what this is here. So let's go back down to him. He is on line 20, right there at the bottom. So this is the information we get that's important. Here's something about him. He's a farmer. So this is going to come in useful as we go forward and try to find out a little bit more about him. This one is males over 29 are able to write. And so over 20 that are able to write. It's over 20 and able to write. Sorry, not males. And it also has if you're able to read, which I found interesting. Not everybody has both read and write there, but he's a farmer. So this is kind of important as we look at the rest of the census. As I mentioned in my video on the overview of all the census, there's important things on this record information that tells you some information that you use for citation. It's the same for everyone. The census year, these are the things that are important. The census year, our province, our district name number, sub-district name number. In this case, it says it's a number, but it's actually a letter. The microfilm number and this image number. This microfilm number we're actually going to utilize in a second because we're going to look at the other schedules. There is a way that you can find out if you don't know, if you know that information, you want to find out what microfilm number it should be. You'll see by looking at him, he is in Inverness is his district, sub-district is North Mountain. So if we go on to here, on this page is just a cheat sheet that they have. And you'll notice his is the only one that looks like it's over 2 different microfilms. That means basically they got to the end of one and they split it somewhere in between. Now, since you don't know which records are where, if you look at actually the individual and you see what micro reel number they have, that's going to tell you for the rest of them. With that information, what you can do is there's a search form that you can go on to, and you can look for the different regions, and you can by province, and you can look for their the number that you're looking for. So I am looking for 565. So if I clicked on that, it would bring me to a large form like this. There's several hundred pages in it. So what I was able to do was actually get the pages I wanted, and I saved them so I could open them later. So I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to make this small, because the other thing now we're going to look at is these schedules. So he was a farmer. So these are some of the things. This is the one we normally look at, the nominal return of the living. Nominal return of the deaths is basically anybody who's died in the last 12 months. Public institutions, real and personal estate. We're not going to look at that. We're going to look at Schedule 4, return of cultivated land and products. Since he's a farmer, let's find out what he farmed. And to do that, we're actually going to look at Schedule 4 and 5. Now, if we went back to the census on him, down here we have the page number and the line number. And that is important when you're looking at these supplemental these schedules. So when I'm looking at Schedule 4, I'm going to go, and this is it here, I'm going to look for his line number, which we had was page number 21 and line number 20. So we're going to look for him here. We have page number 21 and line number 20. So if we look at Schedule 4, which is what we're looking at now, these are all the column numbers. This is easy if you're going through it and you don't want to, you're looking at it enlarged like this, so you can read it, and you don't have to go back and know at the top. And often, sometimes I find the top, the indication of what it says, it's not always the clearest. So we have column 1 and column 2. This is where you find the page number and the line number. The next 2 columns there's nothing for anybody on this sheet that it's range or concession or a lot number, which there isn't. Column 5 is important because it tells you if he's the owner of the property, if he's a tenant, or he might be an employee, because there are people that were employees that occupied the land. So they weren't renting it necessarily, and they didn't own it either. So that is column 5. Column 6 is the total number of acres. So I can see here he owned 200 acres. And then, so if I go to the next line, is the number of acres that were improved, and then the number of acres that were pastured. So we had 40 improved acres. That means that they were cleared, that and he had 28 acres that were being used for pasture. He's got no acres of salt or diked marsh, and no acres of gardens or orchards. So next is about sections are about specific crops. So he has half an acre that he has planted wheat. And he wound up having 10 spring bushels of wheat. He has no fall bushels of wheat. He had, in column 14, he had 16 bushels of barley. Column 15, he had 100 bushels of oats. So the next one is column 21. So he had 2 acres of potatoes, and with those 2 acres, he was able to get 80 bushels of potatoes. And the next one is hay. So he had 8 acres of hay. And then the next line is a ton of 2,000 pounds or bundle. So the next thing we're going to look at, since he is a farmer, is we're going to see that Schedule 5. In Schedule 5, we do the same basic thing as we did for Schedule 4. We're going to look for his page and his line number. So he was 2120. So we're going to put him right there on the bottom. We're going to see what it says about him here. So the first line is how many horses over 3 years old and how many colts or fillies. He had 1 and 1. No working oxen. 3 milch cows. I'm not sure what a milch cow is. 5 other horned animals. 14 sheep. No swine. And no hives of bees. Then we're looking at animal products. So animal products, he had no cattle killed or sold to slaughter or export. He had 2 sheep killed that were sold for slaughter or export. One, and this is doing this to me again, but now you guys can hear me. Okay. So two sheep, one swine. Make sure I'm at the right one. Two sheep, one swine, 80 pounds of butter. It looks like. No cheese, no honey. 20 pounds of wool. And the next one is yards of homemade cloth and flannel, 36. There's no yards of linen. And if we look at him, there's going to be nothing else further. The next two, so we have a little bit of an idea of what type of farmer he was. He had some crops and sheep, and it looks like mostly sheep. He might have been getting into starting to do a few cows. From which I'm assuming milch might mean milk cows, which is what he would make and to make butter that he sold. So the next one we look at, we're going to actually look at schedule 7. These are products of the forest because he did have wooded land. If we do look, let's see what we have for him here. So again, 21, 20, and we're going to see there's nothing really across on his columns until we get to this column here, which is 19. So we're going to look at column 19 was cords of firewood, and he had 15. There's nothing further. So the last one we're going to look at is, and this is particularly because he is in an area where there is fish. His community was made of farmers and fishermen. So again, we have the same sort of things. We're going to look for his page number. So we're going to look for 2120. And we're going to go across and we're going to see the first thing we have is column 14. So column 14 is the number of fathoms of nets and seizes of all sorts. Okay. So 18. Quintals of cod, he had 2. And then barrels of herring, he had 10. And then we're going to look at 26, which is barrels of eel. He had 1. So it doesn't look like fishing was a big part of his livelihood, but it did bring some income that he would have had and been able to sell. So these are the primary ones. There are other schedules that could be of interest depending on the individual. In this one here, there was schedule 9 and minerals. Nobody on this one. There was no entries actually in schedule 9. So when you get this information, it tells you more about the person than if you just had looked at just the main schedule 1 of return, which gives you that great information we always want. But when you want to start filling in the story, now I know what type of farming my third great grandfather had. I know how much land he had. Knowing that number there, I can then compare it with any land grants that he might have been given, and I can then look at that and Let's see if possibly he had given land to one of his sons at this point, or if this is still the entire land that he had originally been given. There's lots of information there that really does help fill in that story. And when you're using a tool like the census or any other records, again, it's not just about the dates, the numbers, the names. It's about all the other information that you can get from it. If we go back, actually, just right to the Schedule 1, we're going to look at this. And like I said, I always suggest you look at the people above and below them. So we're going to share this here. So I'm going to share this here. So we have, I'm going to switch this again to there. So when I look at my third great grandfather, Farquhar Campbell, so we look at some of the names that are around him. So I have Donald McKinnon, which name is going to possibly come into play with my family a little later. Pattersons, McKays. I go to the next page. This is the rest of his family. Then we have McFadgens. Looks like Mackenzie and more McFadgens, McIntosh. And you can go down and you can look at several different things. But one of the things that we're going to notice, so if we go to our Schedule 1, we're going to see that it gives us the place of their birth, and then their origin. Now, this origin here would be what we would call their ethnicity. So that is column 13. So let's look at these people that are all around him. So we're going to look at over at column 13. You're going to notice they're all just say Scotch. In fact, he just dittoed it there. There's not a person that's not Scotch in between. You also notice that most of these people are listed as farmers. There's a teacher. But we do look like we have mostly farmers. So it tells me he's living in a rural farming community. And you look at the size of the lots when we were looking at Schedule 4. When we looked at those individuals, you'll see there was a lot of different, lot of size lots. Most were 100 to 200. So that tells me they were large lots. His neighbors were not necessarily fairly close, but they were all Scottish. So they're all Scottish. Yeah, so by looking at that gives me a little bit picture of the community. I could look at what other crops, if I wanted to go in depth, and that's Schedule 4, and look what other type of crops and type of farm that people did could give me a little better picture of the community. And you will find often neighbors or future relatives that are neighbors on your list when you look around, because at this point people still generally marry close to home. They would have known people from their community. So often when you're looking at a census, you'll find somebody that's could be a generation or two later that is part of their family, is part of your family tree as well. So it's always important to take a look at that. And that gives you an idea too of the relationships, how long the families might have known each other. Okay. So see this Lachlan McKinnon. So he is 12 years old in 1871. That would have meant he was born in 1859. And when I look at my relatives, this is a name of one of my ancestors. Now, whether it is this particular Lachlan or not, when I'm looking at the names here, I'm seeing a lot of the same names that go with the with my family, the McKinnon family. Interesting thing here is you look at the religion, and it tells you here it's the Presbyterian Church of the Lower Provinces. It's technically the Presbyterian Church of the Lower Provinces of British North America, which is a precursor to the Presbyterian Church of Canada. It was fairly new at this point. It was made up of mostly churches that were part of the Free Church of Scotland. And then there was a few other successor churches from the Church of Scotland that made up most of the Presbyterian community in Nova Scotia at this point. And getting to learn that stuff, and it helps you even find the right families. For instance, if I saw that this was a Catholic family, I might know that this is probably not the ancestors that I'm looking for. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I am going to go a little in depth on this in the coming video that should be out at the end of the week. I'm going to go over the census fully of 1871, and I'm looking forward to doing that. I've been working on that video all week. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything they're doing in their own research, anything they need hands with in helping to improve their own family tree. If there is, please let me know. And we will go into what I like to call, since this originally my live stream was called the How We Got Here Genealogy Happy Hour, we're going to go into the last call for questions. So if you have
Last call!
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
So if you have any questions, now is the time to stick them in the chat, and I'll give you a few minutes to do that. And if there's no questions, I'm going to wrap up. And thank you all for listening. In the future, if you see me chatting away and you can't hear me, stick a message in the chat so I know sooner than later. I do appreciate y'all. I appreciate you all coming to watch, and you have yourself a great day, as I'm going to get ready to head out and leave for the day. Stop sharing that. So yes, thank you very much. Thank you for watching.
So that's the story, that's the ride. Thanks for coming right here by our side. We dug up the past, we found the way. Thanks for listening to what we had to say. How we got here, now you know. How we got here, friend.